Welcome to In the Know. In this video, we're going to be discussing what the future holds for Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram after the Pelicans go down to the wire with the Scoot Henderson stuff and decide not to move in that direction. So tune in. What's happening, Mason? We are back discussing kind of the fallout of all of the Scoot Henderson stuff and what it potentially means. I think the biggest takeaway here is the Pelicans ended up not doing the deal that would acquire Scoot Henderson. We don't know what was on the table or what was even possible, but point being, despite meeting with Scoot Henderson in recent days, Pelicans did not pull the trigger. They're moving forward with their core. David Griffin and Trajan Langdon spoke to the media last night. They expressed that they liked what they had on the roster and they don't expect many changes this offseason, which kind of contradicts some of the stuff they said earlier in the offseason, but they've consistently kind of spoken out of both sides of their mouth. So I've said publicly that you cannot trust what NBA executives have to say in these kind of spaces. We just saw Mike Dunleavy talk about how Jordan Poole is going to be a Warrior for the next 4 years, and boom, gone.
4 days.
So 4 days. So Mason, just your overall thoughts on the Pelicans keeping the band together.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say for the fan base, it's probably the most exciting situation because the team, when fully healthy, was pretty damn good last year. I think there's obviously concerns down the road that you've laid out quite great detail. Subscribe to Shamit's Substack. There's the promo boost. But I think I'm excited. I was always very scared about the prospect of trading Zion. I didn't want the Pelicans to trade Zion unless there was just some unprecedented haul for a guy who's had his level of injury concerns. I'm not really sure still what the Hornets were doing last night.
Do they know what they were doing?
Why not even move down one spot? Like there was another team we saw do that in the first round, to go down one spot. The Mavericks unloaded Bertans to go down 2 spots. Like there were teams doing it left and right, and the Hornets had ample time to figure out a deal with Portland to help Portland guarantee themselves Scoot. But anyway, as far as the Pelicans go, I mean, I think you saw the Pelicans draft the player who they thought could help the supporting cast most in Jordan Hawkins. I think I'm curious to see what moves are made now. I think all eyes squarely on Jonas Valanciunas, right? And so, like, is that based on how things ended last year? Is he not long for the Pelicans? Are they going to go in a different direction at the 5? Or does hiring Borrego, is he going to bring some new ideas to the coaching staff that gets Jonas back kind of engaged and a bigger, better part of the team like he was the first year in New Orleans? So I think those are decisions left to be made, but the core is still in place.
Yeah, JV's gonna be coming off pin downs now, baby. No, I'm with you. I think there's a couple of points that I want to touch on. One, I want to touch on the fact that there seems to be a notion, and this is certainly going to be the Pelicans' public stance, and every team's public stance, is that talks were never serious, right? Talks never, we probably never offered our stars and that kind of stuff. So I do want to throw water on that. You do not set up a meeting with Scoot Henderson just days before the draft if you're not serious. And I am sure they are keenly aware what it would have taken to acquire him, aka one of Zion, one of Brandon. It does seem that the Pelicans were on the brink. They were ready to move away from this partnership. So ultimately, they deemed the cost would not have been enough to do so. So here we are running it back for this year. I think it puts the Pelicans in an interesting position moving forward because, one, if this goes sideways, there's only 1 year left on Ingram's deal. Do you go into an extension in that situation? Do you try to move off of it? Obviously, the value goes down significantly with 1 year left on the deal. If it goes sideways because Zion's not healthy, what do you end up doing with that? Obviously, the Pelicans have outs baked into his contract regarding games played and weight clauses and things of that nature. So if they really thought he was broken, they have a way out of there. But again, the value for either of those players is probably never going to be higher if things go sideways, right? This was probably the peak. Now, if things go well, Zion plays a lot of games, Brandon plays a lot of games, then it's a different conversation. And then, I think you're getting into like, hey, maybe we can continue to build around these guys. Let's go ahead and extend Brandon Ingram and keep trying to add around the edges. So it seems like the Pelicans, what they've done is bought themselves some time. It may be at the cost of some top end value. We don't know. We won't probably know the exact specific opportunity cost without knowing what the Scoot deal could have looked like. But they seem to be holding on to now to this idea of internal improvement. Once again, from last season, that was a similar theme: internal improvement. They ended up not doing much last offseason. They're revamping the medical staff. Hopefully, that does has a positive effect on the availability of their players, and perhaps Trey Murphy is taking another leap to where you can start having these conversations about entering the upper echelon of the Western Conference.
Yeah. Do you think, let's wind the clock back to Brandon Ingram's extension. Do you think if he gets that player option in the 5th year, how does that change what transpired over the last, week or two? I mean, does it make I know it reduces Brandon Ingram's market value because it's less guaranteed years until he gets that fat new deal, but also does it make the Pelicans more inclined to trade him just because they're nervous about that upcoming negotiation? So I don't know if it's not really one we can answer, but I'm curious what you think about it.
I'm glad that the Pelicans were not in that position. That's the only thing I can say is I think a lot of the Pelicans' stagnation relative to transactions is due to kind of the compounding effects of the tiny mistakes they've made over the last 4 seasons. So I think the compounding effects of not managing their cap space properly, the compounding effects of not managing their assets properly. Now they have a deficit of second rounders. Those little things, missing on singles year after year and having to spend assets or cap space or valuable resources to correct those mistakes on an annual basis has kind of bled them dry a little bit and really limited the pathways they can take. They can't make aggressive moves because a lot of aggressive moves are going to put them in the tax. So the ownership is not going to pay the tax, right? They can't make small moves around the edges because they don't have tiny small pieces that can facilitate trades, right? People are like, oh, well, what about Najee? If Najee had value, they would have gotten it, right? So either they got these valuable picks, like the Milwaukee pick or the potential Lakers deferral pick, that is probably too soon to execute on. And there's probably an argument that, hey, you should execute on them now. Otherwise, it's going to end up like the pick swap that just happened with the Lakers. I think there's an argument to be made there too. But I would say the value is not commensurate for making moves around the edges. But and likewise, you're prevented, as I just said, from putting those picks in an effort to get some needle moving players because you have a very fixed salary bandwidth that you can play with and not just this season, just mapping it on the future, because you're going to have to pay Trey, you're going to have to pay Herb Jones, and they're probably at this point expecting to pay Brandon Ingram. So I would say their mistakes have led them to a situation where there's not many paths out.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I will say like the situation of having to pay Trey, having to pay Herb Jones, that's good problems to have, right?
Correct.
You've done some good things in the draft, and so the fact that they're thinking about that means that the players have been successful enough where they can, where that is a problem. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, I'm fully with you. I mean, the Devontae Graham sign and trade, still perplexing as to why they had to give up a lottery protected first round pick to get him from Charlotte in that move. But yeah, little things add up. And to your point, we're seeing the impact there. And so going into this offseason, like you said, maybe there's a deal to be made, just a very small one. But if for example, like Najee, but they're probably not getting the return that's going to help the team this year. It's like if you're trying to meaningfully change the roster, you're trading somebody who is a meaningful part of that roster, right? And so it's like Jonas or someone who's actually important to the team. Otherwise, it's more of the same.
Yeah, we're watching the West yet again enter an arms race year after year after year, and like the deadline, the Pelicans kind of stood by watching. I don't think it's their choice to stand by watching. It's just that is the position that they've put themselves in, and I think this season is a critical one. If it doesn't go well, I personally think there needs to be a teardown, but we shall see. It depends on how it shakes out. There's multiple definitions of not going well because, if you get a season where Zion plays 60 plus games and he is the player he is, you have a lot of options on how to tear down around him because that's something you can build on. But if Zion's not healthy, then how much longer can this go on?
Yeah, I mean, and you kind of look around, and this is very premature to do this before free agency even started. But I mean, Denver's Denver. I would, if you try to tell me that Phoenix got worse, there are a lot of complaints about trading for that Beal contract. I think, but Phoenix is going to be terrifying. I think just a number of creators and options, and so they're going to be a really good team. I mean, you can look at a team like Sacramento and say maybe they can't possibly be as healthy as they were last year, but it's still a damn good team. Dallas,
max cap space.
Yeah, they do. And then even Dallas was trashed last year down the stretch, but I think they made a shrewd move in the draft yesterday with, basically flipping Bertans for Rashawn Holmes and creating more, an exception that they put Holmes into. But I mean, I think Kyrie's shit notwithstanding, we'll see how that goes. But I think teams are generally positioning themselves better to be more competitive. The teams that could be a threat to the Pelicans. And so, given the lack of movement around the draft and Scoot Henderson's in Portland and the Pelicans teams together, they're going for it again this year, and so it's not gonna be easy.
Nope, no, it won't be. But we're here and we're gonna continue to talk about them. So I appreciate y'all tuning in.